Have you heard that small rooms need to be all white? Well, guess what? That is absolutely untrue. And today we are going to talk about some design rules that you need to stop listening to. Stay with me till the end because I'm going to debunk the biggest myth of all. Myth number one, small rooms must be painted white. Contrary to the myth, darker hues can actually add not only depth, but a cozy atmosphere in smaller spaces. Strategic lighting and decor can actually amplify a room's appeal. Painting small rooms white is often believed that it creates a sense of spaciousness, but it can actually make a room feel extremely flat and one-dimensional. Using colors strategically in small rooms can amplify the illusion of depth and also create a coziness that is very much searched for, and thereby enhancing the entire overall ambiance. Myth number two, one of my biggest points that I make is that you cannot mix your metals. This is untrue. Mixing metals adds a great deal of character to a room. When done thoughtfully, can actually create a very stylish and eclectic space. Now, here are some tips as to how to do your mixing of metals. It's not just willy-nilly. What you need to do is you need to pick your dominant color, your dominant metal in a space, such as your kitchen. For instance, let's say you pick polished chrome. Then what you want to do is you want to layer in other colors. So polished chrome has more of silver tones underneath. So you're going to want to maybe mix that with a black metal. So you want to go either all cool or you want to go either all warm. On the other hand, if you pick for instance, polished nickel has a lot of warm undertones. It almost has a tiny bit of yellow and rose in it. So what you can certainly do is then you can layer your nickel with your brass finishes. This is really going to create a cohesive look, and you can also bring the metals from your windows. Metal windows or windows of color are very much in, so that you can actually pull, let's say, black from your windows into the kitchen, even though you might have some brass, burnished brass, and some nickel. Begin by incorporating small accent items such as lamps, decorative items, or hardware, and then you can continue to layer as you build your room. Before we get on to the next myth, I need you to hit that subscribe button because I bring you weekly so much information that is going to transform your space and debunk some of these myths that you are believing in, that it's going to be a major game changer in your life. Myth number three, every room needs a rug. Now, you guys know I design rugs and I'm a huge proponent of having rugs, but there are some spaces that don't necessarily need rugs. It is okay not to have a rug in your dining room. It is a myth that every room has to have layers and layers of products. Sometimes less is more. For instance, if you have herringbone floors and you want to show them off, having those in your dining room without a rug is going to bring attention to that space. Or if you have a beautiful tile, whether it be a Moroccan tile that you want to highlight, covering that up would be a shame. Additionally, you can section off and separate spaces by using different materials on the floor, just like in this photo. Now let's tackle another myth that has you second guessing your choices. Wallpaper is outdated. That is untrue, unequivocally untrue. Not only is wallpaper hot, but wallpaper brings a tremendous amount of texture, visual interest, and architecture into your home. And wallpaper does not have to be straightforward, meaning you can have wallpaper that is the texture of micro suede. You can have wallpaper that just has texture. You can have wallpaper that mimics limestone or lime wash. There are so many different things that you can do with wallpaper, and you can also use them as accents, whether it be on a ceiling, whether it be on just an entrance, or whether you're mimicking a mural, or whether you're using a mural. The possibilities of using wallpaper are endless. And many of you might not know, but I have designed a wallpaper collection with Belarte, and they are truly, in my opinion, some of the best designs because they don't overpower a space. You could easily use some of my wallpapers in an entire house and not make it feel dated at all. In fact, it would bring a lot of visual texture, it would bring a lot of interest, and also it would blend in beautifully and seamlessly into any decor. And I will link those wallpaper collections below in the description section because they are really one of a kind. Also, don't you want to express your personal style? Well, wallpaper will allow you to do that. And it will allow you to do that at a fraction of a cost of what it would be to really either hand paint or bring in some very expensive pieces and get a room to be put together. So if you want to make your room look cohesive and are completely out of ideas, bring in your personal expression and use wallpaper. Before I continue, I have to mention that if you are stuck as to which wallpaper to choose or what room you should paint or upgrade or what should be your furniture layout, well, I am here and I'm just a Zoom call away. The description section has a Zoom link where you can book an appointment with me directly. Now that we've debunked the myth about wallpaper, let's talk about another myth. And this myth is formal dining rooms are absolutely necessary. Actually, formal dining rooms are the least used spaces in a home. They sit there empty most of the time, 360 days of the year, minus the 1 or 2 times that you might have an event or maybe a holiday gathering. So there has to be a better use of your space, and a formal dining room can be actually designed and brought into your home in a way that is very natural. Versatile dining setups can be very modern, they can be very utilitarian, and they can be well thought out during your project management phase or during your architectural phase so that you can create spaces in your home that are all utilitarian and usable. Informal areas such as breakfast nooks, kitchen islands, or multi-purpose dining spaces are becoming quite the norm. You can easily have a large or small table that expands, perhaps in a kitchen galley. Informal dining areas are popping up everywhere, and they can be done thoughtfully, perhaps in a kitchen, and can bring a lot of interest in terms of being able to have a casual dining area where everybody feels comfortable. The sense of formality does not have to exist, and if you want to make it formal, all you have to do is dim the lights, bring the candles, put the flowers, and any space in your home can feel magical. Modern lifestyle right now is tending to really focus on the informality of gatherings, the sense of community and family, and therefore having these formal spaces becomes almost an obsolete. Let's pivot to another big myth, and that is I must keep all of my wood tones identical. While it's true that keeping a single monotone wood tone is probably the safest bet, bringing in multi-colors of wood is actually much more visually interesting, much more appealing to the eye, and actually much more stylish. Now, all wood tones have different undertones. They have different species, and therefore these undertones need to be considered. So if you have, for example, white oak in a room, you can certainly bring in a walnut. White oak tends to be probably the most versatile of woods because it can be stained to match or at least have the same undertones as a lot of different woods, but make sure that you are not mixing something like a red oak with something that doesn't have red tones in it. So you have to be mindful of the woods that you are choosing. I'm going to pop up an image here of different wood tones that would work together. We've got cool, we've got warm, so pause, take a screenshot, and go to town. So warm tones would consist of red, orange, yellow tones, and then cool tones would be more in the blues, more in the whites, more in the blacks, and more in the silvers, more in the grays. So you just have to be cognizant of that. You can certainly pick the right finish, but make sure the wood itself is a wood that will not clash with everything else. Now, with that said, you must pick a dominant tone. So with the example of white oak, let's say you put white oak floors everywhere, certainly do not limit yourself to white oak cabinets. That's just too monotonous. You can go for a monotonous look, but that's not what we're talking about. You can certainly bring in a beautiful walnut. You can bring in a beautiful cerused wood. You can mix these different wood tones so that you have the richness, the originality, and the beauty. I mean, if you think back to the Palais de Versailles, the Versailles Palace, you will note that there are a lot of rich wood tones in these palaces. Not everything is of the same exact wood tone. Also, your furniture can be of different wood tones as well, which would bring the sense of not only eclecticism, but also beauty into a space. As we challenge the notion of sticking to a single single wood tone. Let's talk about something else that is also a myth that we need to debunk, and that is everything must be symmetrical for it to be good. Now, you've heard me say how much I love symmetry, and I do love symmetry, but I love symmetry in architecture. You do not have to have symmetry when it comes to furniture layout and design, because bringing your eye to an artful space, to a space that is different and with a little bit of fun in it, is what makes it very designer. So if you have a pair of chairs, you do not need to have them exactly identically spaced and pointing in the right direction. You can certainly put them in different parts of the room and bring in a lot of visual interest. You can also bring a lot of personality into a space by not having everything be symmetrical. You can have different nightstands, you can have different lamps, you can highlight a corner of a room by bringing in a very beautiful large dropping chandelier, ones that go from the ceiling to the floor, and that would be enough. So it really is a matter of what you decide should be your focal point and how you want to highlight that specific area. In fact, over mirroring and overly symmetrical design can look exceedingly boring and too much like the Hyatt Hotel. No shame on the Hyatt Hotels. We need to bring in new nuances into a space and make it feel very original and different from what you see in a catalog. Play with different shapes, sizes, textures, and you can bring the cohesion by, for example, bringing in the same tones of color, but then having different varying pieces in the room. Use a variety of objects with different visual weights so that you can also bring visual interest into a space. This will definitely allow for balance. Experiment definitely with furniture placement. This is something you can do today. You can get up right now and you anchor your sofa in a place that feels comfortable, because that is your largest piece, and then start moving things around. You will see a major transformation when you remove a little bit of the symmetry out of the room. Of course, you want to keep your coffee table, in line with, don't start putting your coffee table at an angle. Let's be realistic here, but align the large pieces such as your coffee table and your couch, and then start playing with smaller objects like this side table. Maybe you move it here and maybe you put an object or a sculpture on it. Perhaps bring two chairs that are not that are facing each other but in opposite sides of the room, and that will definitely up your game. Also, definitely consider experimenting with a single chair, meaning you can have two very different chairs in a room and put them next to each other, but in a way that makes sense. They should be playing with each other artfully. They should be very different from one another. So my technique and my advice that I give myself and my clients is, if you want to bring very different chairs into a room, you got to make sure that they are exceedingly different. They can't have the same shape but be somewhat different. You want to have something that's, perhaps very rigid, very modern, with something that is a little bit more amorphous, something with a little bit more of a rounded edge, and that is going to be a winning combination. Now that we are liberating ourselves of these myths, there is another myth that is extremely important that we must debunk. The insistence that everything in good design must match. This is simply not true. In fact, having a room with too many matching pieces becomes absolutely uninhabitable, at least for me. I just feel that I need to run the other way. I feel like I'm in a cookie cutter space and that I am just not comfortable. And you're never going to feel comfortable in a room with everything that's matched. Incorporating things that don't match not only adds depth, but it adds a sort of dynamic sense into a room and makes the room actually very attractive. So in order to bring attractiveness into a space, as we do with our bodies, when we wear clothes, there was a time where we would match our shoes with our bags, and we would match, colors would be matching. And doesn't that seem so outdated now? Like, I do not match my shoes to my purse unless I'm wearing black. And then of course that's just not even a color. But imagine doing that in your home. It is the same concept. It feels as if you just didn't give it much thought and much attention. Embracing eclectic decor allows for the integration of eclectic styles. And that is what I love most. That is what I feel really sets your house apart from everybody else's, is that when you have sourced products out of love, whether it be at an estate sale, whether it be from your garage, whether it be from your parents' house, etc., bringing in pieces that tell a story and putting them together in a balanced way is really some of the best ways that I've seen people decorate their homes. While not everything has to match, you do want to have some coordination. So you can do the coordinating via color, for example, or via materials. For instance, if you have a room with a different kind of bed, a different kind of light, a different kind of nightstand, a different kind of credenza, all of that could come together by having the same colored undertones and ones that match one another. So it doesn't matter if you have furniture from different periods, objects from different eras, all of those can come together, and your cohesive string in this room is going to be your colorway. Another widespread misconception is that everything has to be brand new to be good. In fact, I bring in homes with clients that do not have any antiques. I insist on bringing aged, old material. I almost said junk, but they're not junk. Sometimes they look like junk, but imagine bringing in an old, completely beat up, what we would call junk, ottoman or wooden stool or mirror in a brand new, expensive, multi-million-dollar home. Makes that object pop. It makes it look beautiful, and it brings in the texture and the history that is lacking in that home. Not only are you bringing in things that are visually interesting, but remember another important aspect of this: sustainability, being good to the environment. I do not believe in buying and wasting and repurchasing, and I believe in sourcing items that are pre-loved, whether it be from First Dibs, from Cherish, from eBay. All of these are really good sources to look for pieces. In fact, there are more and more sites such as Facebook Marketplace that allow for a very easy exchange of and purchasing of used items. And it is a great way not only to save money, but to also save our planet. And you will also be saving a tremendous amount of money, which I would rather you saved your money and used it for construction and materials that are important, such as marble or beautiful fixtures, and then saved money on your furnitures and decor, because you can get incredible pieces. We're not saying skimp. In fact, some of the older pieces are much more reliable in terms of their weight, in terms of their quality, than the new ones. And what better way to create unique spaces than to put all of your beautiful eclectic pieces that you have discovered and you have hunted for together in one space. Get ready for the grand finale. This is the big one. Here it is. The idea that it's not worth doing anything in your rental space. By anything, I mean construction, paint, wallpaper. You are wrong. In fact, changing the space within which you live, and by the way, some of us rent and end up renting for a decade, if not longer, if not our whole lives. So why are we going to limit ourselves because of the notion that perhaps we'll be moving and later in life we are going to be decorating? I find that to be one of the worst myths because, and I'll tell you why. You don't know how long you have, but even if you live forever, the space within which you are living is going to impact your mood when you come home. It's going to make you feel a certain way. Oxytocin, chemicals are being released in your body, such as oxytocins, that make you feel good. It is researched. It has been proven that when you walk into a space that you are proud of, that you have history with, that you enjoy, you are going to live a better life. So imagine you walk in, your blood pressure goes down. That is a very big health benefit. And your blood pressure is not going to go down if you're living in a rental and all your walls are white and you just have temporary furniture and waiting to move, or the fact that you are not adding maybe flooring that would make you happy, or perhaps you have allergies and you're just living with carpeting because that's, you're in a rental. It is worth the investment to make changes. Make sure you speak to your landlord before you do anything. Sometimes they'll just ask you to put it back as you found it, but it has an impact. I know when I was in a rental, I disliked the kitchen that I was in, and what I did was it had laminated floors, so it wasn't a big deal. I went and purchased a different laminated floor, and I DIY'd and covered my kitchen floor with a different laminated product. I painted my walls, I painted the crown moldings, I actually brought in a closet designer and created the closet of my dreams within a very confined space so that I could live better. And these small investments into this apartment allowed me to have a much more enjoyable life, a much more organized life with the organization and brought me ultimately a lot of happiness. Let's not forget that today, when I was doing this, things like removable wallpaper did not exist. Now you can have removable wallpaper. You have command strips that will allow you to, instead of poking holes, to put art up, to put objects up that normally you would not be willing to do in a rental. So there are even peel and stick tiles that you could put as a backsplash in an apartment. And sconces, to me, in apartments, there are ones that light up with batteries, with LED rechargeable batteries, so there is no excuse. You don't even have to break walls to update your home. Another great way in a rental to make that update is to change your lighting. I've done this in other rentals where I just disliked the lighting fixture. I remove the old lighting fixture, I put it in a garage, I store it, and then I put up the lighting fixture that I love, and then prior to moving out, I just switch them back. This is a small fee you pay to the electrician to make your home feel loved. If you're looking for more home design tips, definitely check out my video on bedroom hacks. See you next time.